right.
All right, what is up, YouTube? This is the GoCast podcast for March 12th, 2025. We are back in the building. Seems like we've been, even though we were on last week, seems like a while since we've been on. A lot has happened in the NBA world, but tonight we're going to definitely talk about these end of year awards that seem to be, some of them are kind of already taken, but some are going to be highly debated. So we'll be talking about that. Um, but first, what's going on, Big Nige?
Living the dream. Ready for today's show. I mean, I'll be working from home for the next week or two, so it'd be
Must be
dope.
nice.
Being at the crib, working. So yeah, I'm ready, and it's giving me a little bit more time to watch a little bit more games since I won't be on the road as much. So looking forward to that as well.
Hey, when you're a big baller, you can stay home and work from home. But yeah, and for everybody listening, please check us out here, of course, on YouTube. We'll be streaming live mostly Tuesdays and Wednesdays. My schedule is kind of wonky right now, so it'll be either one of those days. Of course, King Speech, he'll be on Thursdays, 10 Tones Down podcast, so check him out. If you're audio only person, we'll be on Thursdays. I'll be sure to upload that on all your major audio podcasting platforms. So check us out there: Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google, not Google anymore, but Apple Podcasts, and everything around that. So before we get into the meat and potatoes, which is the awards, we haven't really touched on the topic that happened last week. It happened on a Thursday, and it's got the media and the NBA landscape in a uproar. LeBron James, during I believe at the end of the third quarter of their game with the New York Knicks last week, confronted Stephen A. Smith, and it all revolved around Bronny James, of course. And Stephen A., bits and pieces came out throughout from the aftermath. He came back. He came on First Take and said a little spiel. And since then, there's been little, things coming out. Yesterday, he joined the Gills Arena crew. Shockingly, they've been wanting him to be on there for a while. This is his first time on there. It's kind of funny that he just signed $100 million deal. Now he feels a little more relaxed to talk a little, little spicy. But did you watch that episode of Gills Arena, and what do you think about Stephen A. fitting in with the crew there?
Yeah, I definitely caught a good portion of it. I don't think I watched all of it. I never got around to finishing it. But I mean, I thought it was good. I mean, they had been saying that they had called him out on the show. I think it's been like 130 something days until he was able to actually, get on the show. It's a pretty good show. He gave a little bit more of an uncut version of Stephen A., which is kind of similar to how we see some things on the Stephen A. Smith show or on his YouTube channel. So if you haven't seen that, definitely go check that out. But I thought it was cool. The arena was a little bit more buddy. Like when they wanted to call him out in the beginning, I thought it was going to be like a lot of heads butting, a lot of back and forth about certain things he might have said. But everybody there was pretty cordial. Kenyon was cordial. Rashad was cordial. Even Rashad was even going around with his Shao Kahn mask saying that I'm the Stephen A. of like today's generation or something like that. So, or no, he was like, I'm the Stephen A. that actually played, which I thought it was kind of funny. It was like a little dig at Stephen A., but also, kind of true because he's, I think he's more of a skip in terms of his negativity of like always opposing the couch. But nonetheless, I think it was a good episode, and that whole Bronny, LeBron, Stephen A. Smith debacle was definitely crazy, man. I was not expecting LeBron to walk up to this man in the middle of the game. I'm pretty sure the Lakers were still losing when this was happening. And it just wow. Like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, if you're a lip reader, you know what he said. And I'm sure by now, if you've seen the clip and everything has come out. So we don't have to rehash any of that. It's out there for everyone to consume. Yeah, it was a weird, LeBron's usually not confrontational from what I've seen. I haven't watched every single LeBron game, but from what I've seen from LeBron, he's usually not a guy that's going to step to another guy. I mean, even in the heat of the game, he might get up and get a little frustrated, but he's not going to go after a guy. And I don't think he went after Stephen A, but he we definitely got a visual from there. You see how big LeBron is, and then you see Stephen A standing in front of him. A scary sight. If I'm Stephen A, that's a scary sight. Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed Stephen A on Gil's Arena. Like you said, they were a little bit more tame than I expected them to be, especially Rashad. And they even touched on Kenyon Martin and how they had their little thing going on. And Kenyon was very cordial. I think Gil's trying to work his way into a first take job or an ESPN analyst spot. So he's, of course, on his best behavior. But I enjoyed it. Nick Young is Nick Young. He's gonna, he feels like the stoner of the crew, where he's just out whatever comes to his mind, and he's just gonna, just give his take no matter what. So I mean, it was interesting, and I think Stephen A. I think he's now, since he signed that $100 million deal, he feels like he can go to platforms like that and really, sit down and really give you the raw version of Stephen A. He's made his money now, so he can't mess it up. If he had tried to fight LeBron, which nobody in their right mind that's in the body of Stephen A would try to fight LeBron in that moment, that could have been a bad look for ESPN and Disney, but. He's got his money now, so he'll probably popping up in some of these places or bringing some of them onto his platform. But that's not why we're here. If you want the Bronny, LeBron, all that nonsense, there's plenty of it out there to consume on YouTube. But we're not going to touch on that today. What we're going to touch on is the awards race. NBA season is coming to a close. It's not quite over, but we're down to the final stretch. And that means that awards are about to be handed out to some guys, and some guys are doing their due diligence to put their name, stamp their name at the top. So we're going to start at the most improved player, and we'll both give our thoughts on who we think will be named the most improved player in the NBA this season. So I'll start with Big Nige. Who do you believe will be the most improved player this year?
So for me, I had like three choices that I was kind of mulling over. I got to give credit to Cade for what he did this year, or what he's doing this year currently, and how the Detroit Pistons made it a wild resurgence, coming from the last seed last year in the Eastern Conference. They're currently sixth, and they're pretty good team. And that's definitely on large part of Cade's great play, as well as Cade being healthy and, the pieces they were able to acquire during this past offseason, like Tobias Harris, Malik Beasley, a couple other pieces like that, which kind of helped them, win those close games that they were losing last year. But again, having your best player is always a good thing, especially when you're struggling to win games. You get Cade back. He's playing at an all-star level. Got to give a shout out to Tyler Hero. Even though you had the whole Jimmy Butler debacle, he stepped up his level of play. He just deferred those media questions. He just was locked in with the team. He's focused on what him and Bam and now Andrew Wiggins, kind of that little nucleus, with the great play of Khalil War, which maybe another name we'll talk about later on these awards, but definitely want to give him his flowers too. But my guy is Christian Braun. I think him stepping into the role of KCP, not being the shooter that KCP was, but a hard-nosed defender, great cutter, great player off the ball. The averages, I mean, he went from 7 points a game last year to now he's damn near doubled it at 15.3. Obviously, we know he's become an improving passer. Still a solid rebounder for his size, getting about 5 rebounds a game at like 6'3", 6'4". And his field goal percentage jumped up from 46 to 57, and with more attempts, he's almost doubled his field goal attempts, going from like 5 to almost 10 a game this season. And obviously his steals as well, going from 0.5 to 1.1. Obviously those are the numbers, but when you actually would go watch Christian Braun, he has stepped into that role. Now again, his lack of shooting can sometimes spell for those close games where teams are kind of allowed to. He's basically given that shot in the corner, just like an Aaron Gordon. Like when the Lakers matched up with them, you know, those kinds of things are something to keep an eye on for the postseason. But for the regular season, him stepping into KCP's role, given the high energy, high effort on both sides of the ball, to me, he's my most improved player because he's almost jumped his averages from last year twofold with scoring, his field goal attempts, his field goal percentage, and obviously his steals per game.
Okay, now I did not see you go in that direction, but you did name who will be the most improved player. You just didn't pick him as the most improved player, and that is obviously Cade Cunningham.
Yeah, that's fair.
How, this guy has taken a team that was laughed at last season. They were the laughing stock of the entire NBA and turned them into a credible team, a team that is most likely playoff bound. And he's done it. Yes, he's had some help. They did some had some movement over the summer and got some guys that really were veterans, I guess you could say, Tobias Harris and Malik Beasley. Malik Beasley seems to be, fresher and just seems like more motivated playing here than the past places he's been the last few years. And, Cade is right now is averaging 25.7, I think it is, close to that,
yep.
and 9 assists. So he's almost got a double-double. And his team is winning, and he's an all-star. And he, like I said, he jumped from being a part of a laughingstock to putting that team on his back and being a top-notch and bona fide all-star. So you got to award this guy. You got to reward this guy. And so to me, he is definitively the 2025 most improved player. But I'm not mad at your pick. I also was kind of looking at Naz Reid, most definitely Tyler Hero, because I think what he's done in Miami, he's gone from, basically being, a sidekick to actually being the man on the team. So I think that should account for something. But Cade Cunningham should be, he should be rewarded. He's not going to get any of those other awards. He's not MVP level. He's not none of those other ones. So he's got to get something for what he's done this season. So he is my most improved player. And put it down, he will win it.
I got a question, though, because this debate actually came up in Gil's Arena. Should a number one overall pick be eligible for a most improved player, right? What Brandon Jennings had basically laid out was you're the number one pick, right? So, yes, he's not been healthy, and that's very in large part of why they haven't been as good, and he hasn't played as good until this season. But he is the number one pick, and it's like you were drafted to be the best in your class, and this is kind of the expectation. You should be an all-star level, point guard in the league. Whereas you have somebody like Christian Braun, and nobody picked him to be averaging, 15 points a game on a playoff team with the best player in the league. Like, I don't know. Especially when you look at like the long list of most improved players, you don't really see too many number one draft picks. It's almost like Cade should be doing this, and Christian Braun is playing above his expectations to get an award like this. These awards are for like a Christian Braun type player.
I can see what you're saying, and it makes some sense. But if you're going to penalize a number one pick for, not being, for actually improving, then should they not be in the running for Rookie of the Year?
I definitely think they should be in the running for Rookie of the Year, right? You still have to compete against your other rookies.
But you're the number one pick. So
yes, you are the number one pick, and there's a lot of expectations that come with that. But this is still Rookie of the Year. You as the top pick against picks 2 through whatever. But most improved, there's not like an age limit, or it's just literally who has improved the most this season from last season, right? We're not talking about MVP caliber guys or even to some degree all-star level guys. A lot of these awards go to the guys who are up and coming, who haven't really, planted themselves in the league, but they're usually not number one picks is kind of where I'm going with this.
Okay. I mean, I can respect that, but once again, do you penalize him because he was hurt. He's actually finally had a full season. He has been healthy. He's been able to play. So if you look at his prior seasons, has he not improved, or is he just the same player? Because I see what you're saying. You're saying number one pick. Your ceiling is supposed to be higher than everybody else. So when you take a guy that's not a lottery pick, they step up. They're coming from the bench to a starting role, and they excel. Being put in that spot. I get it. So that's where that's. I mean, I would say that probably holds more weight than Cade Cunningham. But I'm saying to not reward him for his efforts this season and bringing a team that was, as I said, the laughing stock of the NBA, bringing them into relevancy. You got to give him something. I mean, if he doesn't win it, I think he should have some. People should give him some credit. As far as the most improved player in that voting space, but I mean, I get what you're saying. If you're number one pick, you shouldn't be improving. You should be rounding out into the player we thought you would be. So, I mean, I get it. You can go either way. But to me, Cade Cunningham should be rewarded for his awesome and great season. So that's all I'm saying.
I had a little bit of technical difficulties, but I did hear everything you said.
Okay.
And I mean, I agree.
Okay. So. I mean, I won't be mad with Christian Brown. Everybody calls him Braun. His last name's Brown, but Christian Brown winning the most improved player. And, but again, Tyler Hero, he went from, a pretty good starter to an all-star. But I mean, we can go back and forth, but Christian Brown, Big Nige, I said Cade Cunningham is the most improved player. Moving on, I think I'll start with this one. There's a runaway candidate for this, and I've been saying it all season. Of course, we're going to get back-to-back rookies of the year. Spurs, we know how to pick them. We know how to draft. So my pick for rookie of the year is Stephon Castle. He has been a huge asset to that Spurs team. To the point that I believe it was who was it? De'Aaron Fox saying he wanted to play with him. And De'Aaron Fox is a elite guard in the NBA. So with that, with that kind of status, you see his impact, and you saw what he did on All-Star Weekend. He was, I think, the first player to play all 3 nights. He was a part of Rising Stars, the dunk contest, and then the little mini tournament that probably will not be returning. But he's been a spark for that Spurs team. He's a guy you can build with, and not exactly build around, but you can build with him. And him, along with Wemby and some of that young core, and now with De'Aaron Fox, sky's the limit. But I'm not even gonna get into the numbers. Risache should get some consideration. He's had a slow start, but he's finally kind of rounding out into the player they probably wanted him to be or want him to be. Not quite there. Jared McCain, what was it? Yeah, Jared McCain from the Sixers had a chance. He was probably going to run away with it had he stayed healthy. Unfortunately, he's hurt. What was the other guy I was thinking about? Wells. Who was it? Jalen Wells.
Jalen Wells.
Yeah, Jalen Wells. Yeah, those guys are, they're playing well. I can't say they're not, but to me, they're not yet on Castle's level. So I'm gonna give him Rookie of the Year.
I agree for the same points. Although I do think Jalen Wells definitely makes this conversation a little bit more interesting, considering that I feel like out of all the rookies, I think this rookie Jalen Wells has attributed to more wins. Obviously, the Grizzlies are a better team than the Spurs. They're a better team than the Hawks. We understand that. But when you're performing in these big games where your impact is more crucial to winning these games on a team that's a playoff team like the Memphis Grizzlies, a team that's deep, and you're able to step out there, be one of the best three-point shooters on the team, be one of the best three-point shooters, in your class, and perform in great fashion. But obviously, we have all the numbers. I mean, he's shooting almost 37% from the 3-point line this season, which is very respectable, especially as a rookie. He has a nice frame. He's like 6'8". I thought he was like 6'5" this whole time until I actually looked up.
I
Like
didn't know he was that tall either. You
he's a
don't look
big
it.
dude. But
Yeah.
I mean, when you look at all he had a nice game against the Lakers. I actually watched that game where he put 20 points on us. He couldn't miss from outside. I also kind of saw the game where they played against Chicago, and he dropped, I believe his season high was 26 against them. Just showing that he has the capability to be a solid 3-and-D wing guy. Maybe he could put the ball on the floor a little bit, do some more things, but he's shown that flat out in this league he can shoot the ball. Like you said, Risa Shea had a slow start, but definitely I think he came around and was the player of the month last year for February.
Mhm.
So definitely doing his thing and stepping into more of a comfortable role after the departure of DeAndre Hunter. They're kind of
Yeah.
giving him a little bit more run, especially with Jalen Johnson being out with his injury. Risha Shea is kind of stepping in and kind of delivering a little bit more. But yeah, it's Stephon Castle. He's scored already in the 16 games, 20 plus points. He dropped 33 against Charlotte. These are rookies again putting up these numbers.
Mhm.
So even though they lost that game to Charlotte, he showed a lot of flashes of, again, stepping out there, hitting the long ball. He's got crafty finishing moves. Obviously, he's got wicked bounce. And the future is bright for him,
Yep.
being this, I wouldn't say generational, but definitely a point guard for the Spurs long-term plans. He's definitely going to be a very good piece for them moving forward. So yeah, he's rookie of the year for me.
Absolutely. And we give credit to Memphis. They've drafted well so far too. So, credit to those teams, the Spurs and the Grizzlies. So moving on, coach of the year. I'm gonna let you start, but I think one guy's ran away with it, but I'll hear your
Coach of the year. This is the one I really didn't do too much digging on. Just kind of like mentally, the top two people that come to mind. I'm looking at JJ Redick and I'm looking at JB Bickerstaff. Now, I mean, Cleveland also with Kenny Atkinson. I got to throw him in there, but I'm just
Well, these
kind
are
of
some
like moving stuff in my brain right
interesting
now.
names. Interesting names.
But if I were to pick one, because I think it should be the three of them in at least in my first glance at this question at coach of the year. You gotta give JJ Redick his credit, not only just incorporating a big piece like Luka, removing a piece like AD and still being very, very good on defense. Just the schemes, you can clearly tell he knows what he's doing. All right, would I give him the coach of the year over how Kenny Atkinson has them playing? It's kind of tough because Bickerstaff had that Cleveland team looking pretty good. Not this good, not this free, but definitely really good. So Kenny Atkinson had a very good system that he inherited, similar to how Steve Kerr inherited the Warriors. But man, what Bickerstaff has done for Detroit, I know they're the 6th seed and they can definitely get up a little bit more. But man, you go from the 15th, the worst team in the East, to the 6th seed in the Eastern Conference. It's really hard for me not to give that to you. I mean, I know the Lakers are probably going to drop a little bit in the standings, so it's hard to tell exactly who. But if I had a vote and I was picking, I got to give love to Bickerstaff, man. He's got that Detroit team playing some lockdown defense. And I just can't – you just got to give him all the credit in the world for how this team's performing.
Okay, I hear you. And I'm gonna shout out to Mark Daigneault from OKC. He's continued his great run with that squad. JB Bickerstaff has done well. Like you said, he's turned around a team that was a laughingstock into an actual, maybe not contender, but a team that is on the rise, on a big rise. You go from, as you said, the lottery to the playoffs that's a big jump. And of course they didn't get, they didn't have a top pick. Also, they didn't get none of there wasn't that much talent, unfortunately, in that draft anyway. So they didn't get anybody that was a game changer in the draft. So I agree with you and I hear you. JJ Redick, he's done a great job. I mean, that Lakers team is looking spectacular. And even when AD was still there and he was hurt, he had them playing. I mean, that night that the world changed, you know, what they did to that Knicks team was just phenomenal, and they had no AD on the court. So, kudos to him. But I'm gonna give Nate McMillan a little credit for that because he's a great defensive mind that he has beside him. So I think that we should give him a little credit there. But I think it's Kenny Atkinson. I mean, this Cleveland team, I understand he inherited a great team from JB Bickerstaff. And, if you look at JB, what he did last year and into this year, I think is no question he's the coach of the year, but we can't do that. We can't, because he had he turned that Cleveland team around. Then he left, was kicked out, went to Detroit, turned that entire team around, that franchise around. That is just pure excellence when you think about it, what he's done for both programs. And his blueprint is on Cleveland, and now he's, doing what he's doing in Detroit. I just think Kenny Atkinson should get some recognition for what he's done with that Cleveland team. Coming in, like you said, letting him play a little freer, getting some getting some rise out of Evan Mobley. He's, become a little better. He's done more for them, working out a team with two bigs in Jared Allen and Evan Mobley. A lot of teams don't incorporate two bigs like that. But Mobley can step away from the paint a little bit, but having those guys, having a great defense, and being number one in a conference with the defending champions in a team that is built, super strong and really built to beat a Cleveland team like that, and them just kind of run away with the number one spot. I think he should. I think he should get Coach of the Year, but you did do a compelling case that kind of has me wanting to switch my pick now. But I'm going to stand firm on Kenny Atkinson because I think he's going to win it because of their record and because of what they've done this season. But you did well with your case for JB Bickerstaff. So I'm not 100% behind my pick now because of the way you laid it out. But I'm going to stand with it. But, yeah, you can't – and with any of those guys, you really can't go wrong. They're – what JJ's done for the Lakers, what Bickerstaff's done for Detroit, Atkinson's done for Cleveland. Phenomenal job by all of them. So some really good coaching. You said the coaching was not was a position that was not very important in the scheme of basketball, but
still agree with that take. I ain't backing off that take.
I mean,
but this is Coach of the Year, though. This is Coach of the Year, so this is a little different.
Okay.
Players on the floor still have to implement, but
But when you kind of get your talent together and make them and give them ways to win, I think that's a big thing. But once again, Big Nige, JB Bickerstaff, myself, Kenny Atkinson, but I'm not saying that with as much energy as I was saying it at the beginning. So we'll move on to the next category, which is Sixth Man of the Year. This is one no one really cares about Sixth Man of the Year. Unfortunately, it's not one of those big time awards. I'm gonna let you start off with your Sixth Man of the Year. Who do you think will be the man off the bench?
Yeah, it's easy for me. This one's Peyton Pritchard. It's not even close. I mean, what he's done for this Boston Celtics team, he's another reason why people they are just going to be singing Boston's praises for the foreseeable future because, again, Boston's still one of the top defensive teams. You got firepower like Peyton Pritchard off the bench where he just lit up Portland for 43. I mean, him and Derek White won a game, just them two. And these are role players, right, on this championship contender team. So, I mean, obviously, yes, he's jumped his numbers up. He averaging 8 or 9 points to almost 15 points a game this season. Career high splits, shooting the three ball at a 42% clip on higher volume. I mean, you can't say enough. Even on defense, he is fighting, scrapping, holding his ground at like 6 foot. He looks even shorter than that. He looks like 5'9" out there. But
Yeah, he's a scrappy little guy.
regardless, I don't think it's close. I think it's Peyton Pritchard, and then you got the field after him. He's been phenomenal this year, and another reason why Boston is probably going to be my pick to run it back again this year. But we'll see.
Yeah, I don't think there's ditto. I don't think there's anything you could say about anybody else that'll put that where you can make a good case of putting him over Peyton, DeAndre Hunter, like you said earlier. He's done some great things for some teams this year. You know, start off with Atlanta, now with Cleveland. But yeah, Peyton. I mean, like you said, him and Derek White beat a team by themselves, and they're not even. They're what the fifth, sixth options, fourth, fifth, sixth options on a team. So when you got that kind of deep talent, that's just insane. So sixth man of the year is Peyton Pritchard. So right before the main event, we got this one's going to be pretty interesting. Defensive player of the year. This was a runaway for the new GOAT, Victor Wembanyama, before he went down. I'm glad he got, he's getting the care he needs for the issue he has. So hope he gets back soon. But I'll start with this one. Jarrett Jackson, to me, Jr. was run away with it once Wemby went down, but he got hurt. Hasn't been quite the same since. There's some great, not great, but there's some good defenders out there. But it's come to me, it's down to two people, Dyson Daniels and Evan Mobley. I think both are playing really good defense it's for Evan Mobley on a really good team. Dyson Daniels has just been a pest for, this season. He's almost locking just about everybody down. So I think he's leading the league in steals right now with three steals a game. So it's going to be hard. I mean, I know they like big men a little more when it comes to defense, and a lot of times by default they'll give it to the big man defender because you can kind of see the effects of their defense a little more because of block shots and making guys adjust shots in the air and just defensive rebounding, stuff like that. It's kind of easier to see their defense as compared to wing defenders or perimeter defenders who staying in front of guys is not easy, especially these fast, athletic players we have in the league now. So him being able to do that and stymie what these guys want to do, that's very good defense. That's Kawhi-esque in my opinion. So if you put me if it was life or death situation, I had to pick one, I'm actually going Dyson Daniels. Like I said, I think they like big men more. But I think what he's done this season and the fact that you can kind of see what he's doing on the court and see his defense play out, him and Amen Thompson, he's another one that you kind of see his effects on the floor. It's really big. So when you have perimeter players like that, where it's like Scottie Pippen, Kawhi Leonard, where you can, they're out there playing great defense, that's something to behold, and it's not easy for those wing defenders. So I'm going to give it to Daniels this year.
Yeah, I agree. I think I don't agree with Dyson Daniels, but I think it's between Evan Mobley and Dyson Daniels. All the points you mentioned about Dyson Daniels, the 3 steals a game is, I think, the most in almost 40 years. You got to go back to, MJ in like 87, 88. He had 3.2. Allen Robinson, old guy. I had to look who he even was. I didn't know who he was.
Research, man. Allen Robinson was locking people down.
Yeah, he was averaging like, I think it was close to like 3.7 or so still. Like it was crazy. 85, 86 season. You got, of course, the great, John Stockton. He did this 88, 89. He got 3.2. So Dyson Daniels is in good company. That being said, this, like you said, this is a big man award. This award favors bigs. Yes, can guards and some wings get it? Absolutely. Will it happen this year? I don't think so. I don't think Atlanta is good enough to warrant Dyson Daniels winning the Defensive Player of the Year, because when you have a team like Cleveland with the best record in basketball, best team in basketball in terms of the regular season, they're going to get more looks, and that's going to go to Evan Mobley. Even though Jared Allen has some very comparable defensive rating numbers to his potentially DPOY candidate teammate Evan Mobley, with the 1.6 blocks per game, with the almost a steal a game, with the switchability, like you said, switchability for bigs looks way cooler than a 6'8" point guard running around terrorizing the perimeter. But you got a 6'11" 7-footer doing the same thing. You just look at the 6'11" 7-footer because he's not expected to move his feet, contest those shots, be a pest on the perimeter, but he is. And since you take Wemby out of the race, who was a runaway DPOY, you take Jaren Jackson Jr. out the race, who I think was the second best defender this year. And again, Draymond would have been a nice little dark horse, but again, just not doing enough for me. And again, you have the best team in basketball. I'm pretty sure they're like a top 5, top 6 defense in the NBA. I think they're 6 right now as of this recording. So all those things together, I got Evan Mobley as a DPOY, and it's just because no Wemby, no Triple J.
Okay, I mean, I have no problems with that because I said those two are 1A, 1B, whatever you want to call it. So I chose Dyson Daniels. Big Nines chooses Evan Mobley. Won't be mad if either one of them win it. Both deserve it. So that's Defensive Player of the Year. So now we get into the main event, what you've probably been wanting to hear. That's our choice for Most Valuable Player of the Year. 2 guys have skyrocketed their way to the top 2. Nobody else is in their stratosphere right now. You can't put Giannis. He's playing good, but you can't put him. LeBron doing great for a 4-year-old, but he's not touching what these guys are doing. Those 2 guys, of course, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Nikola Jokic, 2 guys that are getting it done and getting it done big time. So, since I started first last time, I'm going to put the pressure on Big Nines. If you look at the numbers, we just got 2 samples of them going head to head. We saw them play Sunday. We saw them play, I believe it was Monday night. Shai won the game Sunday. I think Jokic banged up his elbow a little bit. He was a little off. Came back. They put up 140 points against the best defense, one of the best defenses in the NBA. So who do you got as the most valuable player this season in the NBA?
Well, I'm going to preface my comments by saying, again, this is a media-driven award. And again, we just need to keep that in mind. And we also have this big conversation not too long ago between SGA and Jokic. Now, getting to the Thunder, because, again, the MVP, yes, individual award, but this is, again, a team award. It is not given to the best player. It is given to the best player on the best team. Now, that being said, you have to have numbers as well, because obviously you can't just say, oh, by that logic, Donovan Mitchell will get it. It's not where I'm going with this. Okay. Hang with me for a second. So the Thunder are 53-12, right? SGA, we know his numbers, 32.7 points per game, leads the NBA, 5 rebounds, 6 assists, shooting 52% from the field, 37% from 3. Second NBA with steals, 1.8. He's averaging 1.1 blocks per game. Got to make note of that. This is a shooting guard doing this, or point guard really, but point guard, shooting guard, 1.1 blocks per game. All right, cool. He is top 2 in defensive rating. He is the second in terms of defensive rating numbers. The only person better than him is his teammate, Jalen Williams. So the Thunder on a 66 pace. 66 win game pace this year. He has dropped 50 points on 4 separate occasions this season, right? He has shown his improvements. We understand what he is for OKC. Now, in the 4 games against Denver, he's put 30 on them respectfully. He's pretty much got his averages against them, right? Mm-hmm. I understand his stats. Obviously, you'll probably get into Jokic's stats, but he's basically averaging a triple-double. 57% from the field, 43% from the 3. Tied with SGA for steals. I'm not going to talk about the blocks for Yoke because that's not really what he does, but He's got less blocks than a point guard, shooting guard. We ain't gonna talk about that. And he's also playing more minutes than my guy. Just throwing that out there. But when we're talking about the MVP and why I have SGA over Jokic, because obviously I do. I had him one a year ago, but nonetheless, they were 57 and 25 last year. The Denver Nuggets are not on that same pace this year. They are 42 and 23. So unless they just win 15 straight and lose 2, they're not going to get back to what they were last season. Mind you, the Thunder, 53 and 12. They have shown improvement. SGA has elevated his level of play, and they have gotten better. Again, best player on the best team with whatever stats you want to go and throw in. All right. So before I give you the floor, because both candidates are great, but again, when you look at the average margin of victory, the Thunder have the best in the NBA at 12.58. Right. Then we go to defensive rating. They are the best defensive team in basketball. The Denver Nuggets are subpar. They are 22nd in the league in defense. They are not a good defensive team, right? So when you look at how they were last year, so let's just look at them how they were last season. When Jokic bumped him out for MVP, Denver was 8th in offense, 8th in defense, 5th in offense. OKC was 4th in defense, 3rd in offense. Okay. Right? So now we're talking about this season now. OKC now 4th in offense. Slightly worse. Injuries, attrition, we get that. They are the number 1 defensive team where I see improvement led by their best player. Denver is now 2nd in offense, an improvement from last season, but they took a nosedive defensively.
They did. I mean, he was big.
Jokic is getting hunted in a lot of these games. There's no way to point it. You do not have the personnel to protect him no more. He gets hunted. My guy SGA plays both sides of the ball. Jokic does not. When we talk about the best player, when we talk about the MVP, you got to put respect on SGA because he is going out there and he's doing it on both sides of the ball. SGA is the MVP. He's on the best team in the West. He's playing the best on that team. There's nothing else to be said. Jokic is phenomenal, but this year it's going to SGA for all the reasons I just mentioned and the fact that this is a media-driven award. They're not going to do this man SGA like this 2 times in a row. It's not going to happen.
I heard you, and you made some compelling points, but what Jokic is doing this season is legendary. Very few players have ever done some of the things he's doing. He is hearkening back to Wilt Chamberlain, which Wilt Chamberlain is a mythical figure that did things that just no man should have been able to do during that time. So I get what you're saying. I just did a video on this. So let's look at their numbers, and then I will come with my pick. So you went over plenty of numbers, but Jokic is a better rebounder. Obviously, he's a center. He's leading SGA in assists, field goal percentage, 3-point percentage. SGA has the free throw percentage over Jokic, and SGA has points per game over Jokic. Every other stat, and they're tied in steals, and he's over him in blocks. Okay, but every other thing, Jokic is head and shoulders above him. So in points per game, SGA is 1st in the league. Jokic is 3rd. Rebounds, SGA 76. He's not a rebounder. Jokic 3rd. Assists per game, SGA 16th. He's a point guard, combo guard, shooting guard. 16th in the league. Joker 2nd. Field goal percentage, SGA is 25th in the league. Jokic 11th. 3-point percentage, SGA 79th. Joker 8th. Free throw percentage, SGA is 8th, and Joker is 61st. So of those categories, other than free throw percentage, the Joker is almost 10th or better in every one of them. That's That's something crazy. But let's go to advanced metrics. I don't know how much you value advanced metrics, but Joker has the highest PER in the league, highest box plus minus. SGA leads him in win shares. Joker has the highest VORP, value over replacement player. Offensive rating, Joker beats SGA, and defensive rating. This is where there's a huge divide between them. SGA is leagues ahead of him. He's second in all the NBA right now, and Joker 15th. That's admirable for a guy that isn't known for defense. He's the first player to put up 30 2020 ever. The things he does, and most of us beginning of the season felt that Denver was going to have a drop. We saw what happened in the playoffs last year. Minnesota, got him out of there. They lose KCP. They bring in Russell Westbrook. He's a wild card kind of player right now. They lose their rookie, their draft, who was supposedly going to help out Jokic. So that was a young player they lost. They're still second in the NBA. They finished third last year. Right now, they're sitting at second. So there hasn't been a drop-off from where they're at, maybe in their record, but there hasn't been a drop-off. And Jokic has just been all you can say is he's been phenomenal. I mean, he has a team that has no other all-star. Like nobody even I don't know how Jamal Murray did in the fan vote, but I don't think he did very well. So no other all-star, second place in the Western Conference. How do you deny this guy? But unfortunately, you have to this year. Unfortunately, with these numbers, with his just insane advanced metrics, this year, you got to give it to SGA. Jokic is my guy.
Whoa.
Jokic is my guy. I was
not expecting that. Oh, my goodness.
Jokic is my guy. And the one thing you said, which I think will play a huge part in this, is winning. I think even though you look down the line, the OKC Thunder has a much better team than the Denver Nuggets. That's kind of obvious. And I know people will say, well, if you took Jokic and put it on Thunder, you put SGA, put him on the Nuggets drop off, Thunder will probably still be as good as they are. And I agree with that. But what Shai is doing is somewhat reminiscent to a guy that I think is the GOAT, Michael Jeffrey Jordan. He's putting up those type of numbers, and those type of numbers you can't deny. Even with the numbers that Jokic is putting up, they look great. They are great. But I mean, SGA is doing this and winning. So if Jokic could get that team to at least 50 wins, I'd say he has a case. Well, no, how many they got? What, 43?
42 right and 23.
42. Okay. Well, not 50 wins. I'm saying maybe closer to 55, 60. If somehow he was able to do that, which is probably impossible, maybe you could slide him in. But, I mean, you can't really deny SGA. He's come out and been just as good this year as he was last year. So, I mean, that accounts for something. You got to count that. And his team was just far and away better than the rest of the pack in the West. So that accounts for something else. I mean, this is like Jordan 96. They separated themselves from the pack, and they were the best team in the league. Unfortunately, OKC has a great Cleveland Cavalier team to kind of offset what they're doing. But if Cleveland hadn't been playing that well, I mean, there was no denying SGA. So I have to give it for winning. But I would not be surprised if for the first time ever, we have a co-MVP. If Jokic finishes strong, keeps up these averages, if he finishes with a triple-double as a center, and SGA, keeps his numbers the same, I can see them. I can see them voters, 1 or 2, and maybe some flip it, and there be a tie. But I just don't see any way, unfortunately, to give it to Jokic. And like I said, I'm a Jokic guy. But there, you can't deny SGA this year. I just can't. I mean,
I'm so surprised that you said this because I was thinking we was gonna have to go back and forth on this for a while, but hey, I ain't gonna fight it. I'm glad you finally starting to see the light over here.
like I said, the only thing that that separates them is also on the defensive end. The fact that he's putting out those numbers and playing defense at a high level, you can't really, there's no way you can't say he is the best player in the league right now and the most valuable player because he's the head of the snake. He's the one that's leading that team, and that team is just killing team. So, I mean, if Jokic he could have just had the winning that he had last year, I think he gets another one. But I think a lot of people who wanted SGA to win last year are not going to let him lose this year, not after the season they've had. So, I mean, I think it's a given now, unfortunately, that even after what Jokic did Monday night, I still don't think he has enough to do it, which is crazy because he's putting up numbers we've never seen. So that's ridiculous. That's ridiculous that he will not win an MVP doing that. But such is the way of the NBA. But with that said, we missed community quarter a few times. The last one we never got to, so we're going to do that just quickly. Do what the people out there. We thank you for voting in that, and so their question, the one they picked for a hot take, what player from any era would you have them switch to another era? Basically, what player would you want playing in a different era, or you want to watch playing in another era than the one they played in?
What era? I think Shaq would have been a very interesting piece for this, like today's age. I think mainly because when you look at like Orlando Shaq, huh?
You think he'd work in this era?
I mean, he said himself that he's in the NBA right now. His name is Giannis Antetokounmpo. I don't necessarily believe that, but why I think that is because if you plug a young Shaq into the modern NBA, he would have had to change his game some, and that is kind of where my mind is spinning on. Like, I want to put Shaq in 2025, young Shaq, and see how his game would develop. Because obviously, I don't think he would have gotten as fat and lazy and out of shape because the road to winning would have been a lot harder. Like, if I'm not going to say if you throw him, you could throw him on Orlando right now with Paulo and France, and he would be really good for them. But given how teams win today, they're still not a great 3-point shooting team. So does Shaq become somewhat of a shooter? Does he find some way to be a mid-range shooter maybe? Does he flesh out his ball handling skills and now he's like a point center? I mean, like, Shaq to me is the biggest anomaly because he was so dominant at just being bigger, stronger, and even faster than most of his opponents. How does he look today?
Okay. I mean, that's an interesting one. That was one I didn't think of. I'm not going to say the obvious because I would say MJ in this era. But I'm going to say one that's probably a little weird, but I would love to see it. Kawhi Leonard in the late 80s, 90s. Because I would love to see him matched up with guys like Magic, guys like Bird, guys like Jordan, Pippen. He'd probably guard a guy like Barkley. I want to see him play some of those guys that weren't. I mean, Jordan was obviously athletic, but weren't super athletic, but were strong. Were a little more fundamental when it came to the game. Couldn't beat you just off of their speed and stuff like that. They had different skill sets and things of that nature to beat you. I just want to see him in a slower paced, Yeah, I didn't even like seeing Kawhi in the 2000s, against Iverson and those guys. And Kobe. I mean, we did get to see a little bit of Kobe, but prime Kobe and T-Mac and guys like that. I just, I like Kawhi's game enough to where I would like to see him against some of those greats and just see how, how his defense would translate against those guys. And if he was, just really as good as I think he is. And I think he could have carved out, and he's already carved out a Hall of Fame career, but I think he could have even, bolstered that even more in that era, because I don't know too many players that could have stopped him, especially when he got to his peak. For those like Toronto, Kawhi, I don't know. I don't think Jordan or Pippen could have stopped him. He was just that good at that time. It depends on his personnel around him, but
yeah,
if he had the right people around him, they would have been tough against that, for that Bulls team to contend with. So, that's me, Kawhi Leonard, in the 80s, 90s. Shaq in the current era. Shaq and Giannis are nothing alike to me. But I guess they're just powerful dunkers. So
you could throw Hakeem in there too. He'd be a good one. Another big that was like ahead of his time.
Hakeem in today's game?
Yeah, in today's era.
Oh, yeah, I think he would definitely translate well. And I think he had a little 3-point shot. He shot him. So
more volume. I already know he's one of the greatest, arguably the greatest defensive player of all time. You might want to throw Tim Duncan in that equation too, but hey, like Hakeem today with basically zero paint defense.
Man, he would make Jokic look ridiculous if Jokic tried to guard him. He would make some of these guys look bad, really silly trying to defend him. I would like to see, who I'd like to see try to guard him? Your boy, who's playing a little more center now.
Bron? Oh, nah, I don't want Bron on that.
Yeah, I want to see him. LeBron's fast. He got some footwork. He got the, he got the strength. He's got, he can stay with guys, but.
Yeah, but that's different, man. That's a footer moving like a 6-footer. I don't like that, especially Bron now. Maybe prime, like Miami Bron. Okay, I'm cool. Maybe Miami.
No, I wouldn't say that. Yeah,
I wouldn't say now. Nah,
that is absolute barbecue. I mean, Hakeem going for about 50. Yeah. So yeah, no, that's that wouldn't be a good match. But I'd like to see young Bron trying to, push Hakeem off that block.
Good luck.
But I think that will do it for tonight. We a little shorter than usual, but we had our picks, and I think we got them. We stated our cases pretty well, convincingly. So if you're in the comment section, let us know who your picks are, and if you agree with our picks. I know some Jokic lovers out there are going to be kind of upset that I flipped on my guy, but we got to reward something like what SGA is doing, and unfortunately, Jokic may never have a season like this again. But he just came at an unlucky time when SGA he's just that good. So with that said, any parting words, Big Nige?
Appreciate everybody pulling up and watching the show. If you're not watching this live, I definitely appreciate the view as well. Leave a comment down below who you got for MVP. You got SGA like us. You got Jokic. You got somebody else. I mean, you got Rookie of the Year. Let me know who you got for Rookie of the Year. 6-man, and definitely DPOY, because I know
that's an interesting one.
Evan Mobley might not be your first choice, so comment down below and let me know what you guys have for DPOI as well. But make sure you spam SGA in the comments for MVP though. Got to get that narrative going, baby.
And I did want to hit on one comment we got, because I don't know if you saw it, so I'm going to I'm gonna read it from our media versus NBA stuff. Somebody had a very strong opinion. They said, people like you, I assume us, are ruining the NBA. It started with Stephen A. and Skip Bayless and social media. It used to be nice when you look forward to seeing SportsCenter. Too many people with an opinion.
I don't agree with that. I mean, I think everybody's entitled to their own opinion. If you don't want to hear someone's opinion, don't click on their video, but this is just, we're in the social media era. So I mean, everybody's got an opinion, and everybody, gets their phone and gets to tweeting or gets to typing. So I mean, that's just the era we're in. So
yeah, I mean, how is that any different than the comment he left? That's your opinion. You left it for the world or for us to see. So I mean, that's no different than what we do on here. We're not saying we're speaking facts. These are just our opinions, and this is just how we feel about certain things. We wanted to touch on that topic, so we did, and we let you know how we feel about that. Now, we could have wrote a long 3 paragraphs of it, where we would have to read through it, but no, we decided to get on video and audio and let you know how we felt about those topics. But if you blame us for the way the NBA is right now, then I mean, I guess we'll have to just deal with that as we move forward. Maybe, I guess, a little channel like us, our 200 subscribers, we're negatively affecting the NBA. We got to be nicer, we got to be nicer and
put us on First Take. If we're this bad, put us on First Take so they can crucify us up there. Let's go.
I mean, we got the email in the in the description. So email us, let us on the First Take, and we'll be bad. You can blame us on there. We'll just have a little bit of extra money and a bigger paycheck. So anyway, we appreciate you, Morris Mims, for taking the time to comment. So we're not hating on you, but I just wanted to hit that real quick before we get out of here. So once again, thank you guys. We'll be back next week. Like I said, Tuesday, Wednesday. It'll probably be Wednesdays because Tuesdays are very busy in my household. So I guess we're just gonna have to move to Wednesdays from now on. Like I said earlier, 10 Toes Down tomorrow with King's Speech Row. I think they're going to talk a little bit about that Stephen A. Smith stuff, and he's got a couple more things that he's going to touch on. So check that out. And like Big Nige said, if you're watching it here live, comment. If you see this after the fact, comment. If you want to go listen to it audio only, check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, all of those. So thank you, and we'll be back next week.
All right, y'all.